I got you. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule because I definitely wanted to talk to you about a couple of things and, of course, yourself. But let's get right into it. I want to have you back on to get your perspective on some trending news headlines. You called the escalation between Israel and Iran a propaganda war. We all know what's been going on between Israel and Iran. We've heard President Trump speak about it. You've been on the record calling it a propaganda war. Explain that, Candace.
Well, it was very obvious that this war was going to happen because the American foreign policy is dictated by Israel. And it was problematic that Bibi Netanyahu was increasing his rhetoric against Iran. And this is after they have effectively seized land in Syria. They were cheering what happened in Syria. We knew that it was going to wind up with Christians being mass murdered, which is what's happening right now. And what's happening in the Middle East, for those who aren't clear on this, is Israel is simply is expanding its borders, whether that be by carpet bombing women and children, which we have not had a person with power effectively state that this is morally wrong, of course. And now it seems they also want to annex the West Bank. What's happening in the West Bank, which has nothing to do with Gaza, is the individuals that live there are being traumatized by the IDF. And so if you're paying attention, it's very clear that they have become increasingly radical, and they are effectively, as they always do, using the American military to fulfill their foreign policy interests because they are a small nation. They don't have the bodies to be able to accomplish that. They need the might of the American military to accomplish their foreign Middle Eastern objectives. And so, yeah, it was I am on record saying this for the last 2 years. We're going to war with Iran one way or the other because what Bibi Netanyahu wants is what Bibi Netanyahu gets.
How is that? How is that the case? Because listen, I'm watching the Daily Show the other day, and I'm watching Jon Stewart, who obviously is a supporter. He's Jewish, and he's a supporter of the Jewish community in Israel, of course. But he spoke out about how Netanyahu was saying the same thing recently that he said in 2018, that he said in 2015, that he said
real quick. Since 1995, Netanyahu, on numerous occasions, and I'll play the clip after this interview, has said that they are close 3 months away from a nuclear bomb. Where's the proof? Just show us the proof, and then we won't complain or get upset with you.
2011. And what's surprising to me is that there seems to be a community divided within the own Jewish community. You have some people who are about being isolationists, which is something we'll get into later, and don't necessarily support this. And then you got guys like conservative pundit Mark Levin, who I know that you know a thing or two about. You know, I know him. I've known him for years. And he is fixated on this. He believes that America should be involved. He believes that Iran is evil and that they need to be wiped off the face of this earth. And that essentially the threats that
I'm sorry, guys. I'm switching internets real quick.
Not just to Israel, but death to America as well, justifies the kind of things that we have been seeing. Do you have, do you take that into consideration when you're giving your thoughts?
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that the public needs to recognize is this intentional conflation, and it's completely wrong, of Israel, the foreign nation, which is being led up by Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu, and Jewish people. That would be an absolute nonsense if I sat here and I said, well, whatever happens in Nigeria, it means that if you critique the Nigerian government, that you're somehow against Black people in America. We would all say that's nonsense. But they have been very successful in this idea that if you critique what is happening in the Middle East and what actions are being led by Bibi Netanyahu's government, radical government, then you're somehow anti-Semitic. So it shouldn't surprise you to see that many Jewish people have taken to the streets. Not only Jewish people, by the way, Israelis, because as we know, even in America, you can be an American and not support what the government is doing. I am not supporting right now the decisions that are being made by the Trump campaign as it pertains to Middle Eastern policy. But they have a disagreement. You have Israelis taking to the streets, boycotting, protesting Bibi Netanyahu, and similarly, you have Jewish people who recognize that there has been this wrong conflation, as if all Jewish people agree with the nonstop campaign of bombing in the Middle East, which has essentially been in effect since 1948, since the creation of Israel as a nation. And so I'm not conflicted or confused about what's happening. I find it to be as disingenuous as attaching, well, if you critique Black Lives Matter as an organization, this means that you're critiquing all Black people. No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that whatsoever. I'm critiquing the Israeli prime minister. I am critiquing their actions, really their actions which have began since 1948. The more that I become educated about the topic, it has always been this despicable. It has always been a campaign of carpet bombing and theft, stealing lands. And when people notice what they're doing, they say, well, you can't say that because of anti-Semitism. That's ridiculous, okay? You know how I feel about this, especially as someone who's been called an Uncle Tom and a coon for critiquing things that were happening within the Black community. I am not going to respond to name calling. I'm going to respond to the facts. And the facts are what Bibi Netanyahu is doing in the Middle East is a terrorist campaign.
I saw a recent episode, I forgot who you were talking to, forgive me for not knowing his name, but you were showing highlights of Dave Portnoy, for Barstool, and how he was going at one of the individuals that I think he employs. And he went ballistic because of a joke that was being aimed in his direction or what have you. And I don't remember the joke, so I apologize for that. But you were highlighting his reaction because you were pointing out how he could joke about some things, but if you joke about anything at this particular moment in time, it's going to be labeled anti-Semitic. Is that something that you feel fervently about, that you feel adamant about, in terms of you just can't say anything is such a lopsided thing? Because when I think about the Jewish community, of course, I'm looking at some of the things that are transpiring. I don't like it one bit. In the same breath, I'm thinking about October 7th from a couple of years ago when they were attacked and people were kidnapped, people were killed, et cetera, et cetera. And the retaliation on their part was predictable and in the eyes of a lot of people, understandable. That's where I come from with it. Where are you coming from with it when I use a Portnoy example or others as you allude to anti-Semitism, which is obviously a grave concern for the Jewish community at this particular moment in time?
First and foremost, I can think of nothing more anti-Semitic than 2 years of bombing the Palestinians, who are a Semitic people. That's another thing. They just decided they're the only Semitic people, which is absolutely absurd and it's erroneous. But further to your point, there was this media effort, and we've all seen over the last 2 years, there's been this increasing slur of anti-Semitism everywhere. Like, people who have been in the public space forever and have never been accused of being anti-Semites are now being accused of being anti-Semites, me being one of them. I worked for 2 Jewish organizations before I was suddenly being accused of being anti-Semitic. So sometimes on its face, you have to ask yourself a question. And again, I will use the example of BLM, where suddenly it seemed like everyone was being accused of racism to the point that it was becoming a parody. Like, someone would braid their hair and they'd be like, cancel this girl because this is appropriation. When you start to see that increase, and what people are actually trying to do is control speech, right? This guy said, I think it's okay if someone jokes at you and calls you Rabbi Dave Portnoy, you should be able to take a joke, right? Welcome to the internet. Everyone's called different things. And he has a meltdown and asks him, Dave Portnoy says, how many Jews have to die before you stop joking? That's an emotional manipulation tactic, okay? Nobody dies from a joke, okay? Nobody dies if somebody tweets at Dave Portnoy, hey, you're Rabbi Dave Portnoy now, as they're critiquing you. And you only do that, you only start to come in on speech and to demand all these rules and these cancellations when you have something to hide, when you are wrong, okay? Because when you're winning on the basis of your ideas, when you're winning on the basis of the argument, you don't ask for more censorship. I want the debate. When I know I'm right about something, I'm not going censor the wrong guy. I'm like, platform the wrong guy, get me across from him so I can embarrass him. So we knew this was coming on the basis of this increase of smearing people as anti-Semites for asking rational questions. And so I'm not surprised.
Yes, and I agree. Anytime you criticize Israel, it seems like, especially in these past few years, they will call you anti-Semite. You have to support 100% in lockstep with everything you're told. Otherwise, they call you anti-Semitic. And it's so dumb
that we arrived at this point.
Well, where I would push back on that, Candace, is that's you. You're highly intellectual, very, very articulate, very researched, exceptional at defending your points, etc. And so that could give you the, I don't want to say the motivation, but the ability to be calm and collective in articulating a point of view to refute something somebody else is throwing at you. But if you're a Dave Portnoy, just to use this example, and you're a Jewish individual who emphatically believes that there's anti-Semitism raving through this country, if not this world, at this particular moment in time, you can't understand why he would react. And I'm not saying he should have gone as far as he did, but can you understand where he's coming from when he's passionate about it? Because to me, it's coupled with a fear that the Jewish community is feeling at this particular moment in time because of what they're doing, and to use your words, because of the action of their own government in Israel.
I can't understand it, not even 1%. Okay. And nothing is more obnoxious than having somebody as successful, a multimillionaire, who probably doesn't even touch his own door handles, pretending that he's just so terrified and he can't go outside. That's a nonsense. Okay. He is trying to hype up his victimhood because he does not have an argument to make. And that's what people do. They lean into victimhood when they cannot rebut an argument. It would have been very easy for him to calmly explain, this is the reason why this is wrong. And so died because of this joke. Someone fell over and died because someone tweeted Rabbi Dave Portnoy. But that's nonsense. So he went with screaming, and then in this weird slave owner vibe tells him, I own you and I pay you and I own you, which is just, quite frankly, despicable.
Got you. You know what? I got to keep in mind, Candace, when I'm talking to you, I'm going to make sure I don't raise my voice or anything like that. I mean, you got me wondering if I did the wrong things by raising my voice, talking sport, for crying out loud. Because that's a good. I'm like, let me look at myself. Let me check myself just a little bit more in the future, because Candace is bringing up some very valid points. I got it. Let me move on to Tucker Carlson while I have you here.
I really don't get why the conservatives are hating on Candace. I'm trying to realize and just hear everything out and see why the conservatives are attacking Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens. I still haven't heard one valid reason.
You a little bit later, because I want to talk about some things involving you directly. But right now, I wanted to touch on Tucker Carlson, the former Fox News host, got into a fiery exchange on Tuesday, with Senator Ted Cruz over his support for President Trump and his posturing towards Israel. At least that's what Tucker Carlson claims it to be. I want to show you this clip right now with Tucker Carlson getting into it with Ted Cruz. Take a look at this, Candace.
How many people live in Iran, by the way? I don't know the population at all. No, I don't know the population. You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple? How many people live in Iran? 92 million. Okay. Yeah. How could you not know that? I don't sit around memorizing population tables. Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government. Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant? Because if you don't know anything about the country... I didn't say I don't know anything about Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran? They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute. It's not even, you don't know anything about Iran. So okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran. You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government. You're the one who claims anything about the country. No, you don't know anything about the country. You're the one who claims they're not trying to murder Donald Trump. You're the one not saying that. Who can't figure out if it was a good idea to kill General Soleimani, and you said it was bad. They're trying to murder Trump. Yes, I do. Because you're not calling for military strikes against them in retaliation. And if you really believe that, we're carrying out military strikes today. You said Israel was right with our help. I said we. Israel is leading them, but we're supporting them. Well, you're breaking news here, because the U.S. government last night denied, the National Security Council spokesman Alex Pfeiffer denied on behalf of Trump that we were acting on Israel's behalf in any offensive capacity. No, we're not bombing them. Israel's bombing them. You just said we were. We are supporting Israel. High stakes. You're a senator. If you're saying the United States government is at war with Iran right now, people are listening.
Candace, you saw that. What do you make about that face-off right there? Your thoughts?
So first thing I want to say is I greatly respect both of these men. I very much like Ted Cruz as a person. I have had nothing but positive relations with him anytime that I've come across him. But in this clip, it really embodies everything that I think the American people are so frustrated with, right? You have a person who is keen to go to war with Iran, and he is suggesting that it is, I guess, a form of trickery to ask him, what is the population of Iran? If you're going to make a vote that we should go to war with this nation on behalf of Israel, and it is a fact that Ted Cruz accepts a lot of money from AIPAC, so they lobby, and the Israel PAC lobbies. He's one of the senators that takes a lot of money from AIPAC every year. You would imagine that you've made some estimation in your mind that there is a imminent perceivable threat to the American people if you are in fact America first and concerned about Americans, and B, that if we go to war with them, we can win. And so in going through that line of questioning in your head, can we win this? Like, is there a threat to the American people? You, of course, are going to assess the population size. Like, we're a nation of 300 million people. How big is our military? They're a nation of how many people? How big is their military? And he hasn't done that. He's admitting like, hey, I actually don't even know the population size of Iran. I do expect you to know the population size of Iran. That'd be a pretty basic thing if you're going to vote yes to going to war. And the reality is he can't answer that question because, like many people in Congress, left and right, they vote according to how they are lobbied. So if it's Big Pharma, they're voting for everyone to have to take the COVID vaccine because I took X amount of dollars from Big Pharma, right? Or I took X amount of dollars from this pharmaceutical company. If it's big war and you're dealing with the nonstop war, there's always been a threat in the Middle East, right? And we've lost all of those wars, right? The Taliban has our weaponry. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Generation 9/11 has grown up. We are demanding that all of you be able to answer some basic questions and to explain why a threat, which Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence 8 weeks ago, sat down in a congressional hearing and testified that there was no nuclear threat 8 weeks ago. Now, suddenly, 8 weeks later, there is one, right when Israel decides.
Great point. Yes, just provide us the proof of what you've seen. I don't understand why the American people are never given this. We didn't vote for war, so show us the proof, and then we will act on it, act appropriately. It's not that. I just don't get why people are mad at Candace. I don't.
That they want to bomb Iran. It's a nonsense. And I am tired of being gaslit by our politicians to pretend that we don't understand and can't perceive the threats. The threat, actually, frankly, is Israel, because we go to war and it only benefits them.
You know, you sound very, very disgusted. I'm wondering where the word fear comes into play. I believe I've read, or doing my research, I was told that you feel you needed security. Obviously, some of the things that you say are incredibly polarizing, particularly in this day and age right now. Whether it should be or not is for somebody else to conclude. I'm just telling you what they're saying. When you take that into consideration right now, as you look at your life, you just had you just was on maternity leave, you got 4 kids, you're happily married, etc. How comfortable is life for Candace Owens right now, or lack thereof, dare I say?
Well, I want to be honest. I have tremendous fear of God. And that's why you have to tell the truth, right? If you declare Christ's kingship and you truly are a Christian, then your number one fear is of God, because this is not it. We get 80 years in this life, and then we're in the next. And so when you see these people who pretend to be Christians and they look at what Israel is doing, they look at the nonstop campaign of starvation. You can look at the videos of them bombing children, the children crying, shooting children as they try to run for food, and you pretend to declare Christ's kingship, and yet what you're actually fearful of is saying that that's wrong because you don't want to be canceled, because you don't want to lose your job, because you don't want people to call you an anti-Semite. I question your sincerity is what I would say. I don't sit in the seat of judgment, but what I say to people is you are going to one day meet your maker. So you better start doing the right thing, which is to tell the truth unapologetically. And I want, in terms of my family, I want my children to inherit that from me, to be passionate for the truth, which is to be passionate for Christ, right? That is what Christ is. Christ is the truth. You have to follow Christ at all times. And I've made my position very clear on this.
Christ is king.
Who are you saying is pretending to be Christian, just for clarification? Because you alluded to people
the argument that has been made by people, and Tucker Carlson just released further parts of this interview with Ted Cruz, and he says, why should we follow Israel? And he says, well, the Bible says that if I, bless Israel, then I will be blessed. That is what Ted Cruz says to Tucker Carlson about why we should be following them into this war. And Tucker Carlson, who's a Christian, pushes back on that. He's like, well, let's get into the theology of this. You think that you are going to be blessed, and I'm filling in the blanks here, but essentially what Ted Cruz is offering is that you will be blessed if you allow this nation, which was created in 1948, that Genesis is referring to, this modern nation of Israel, right, to bomb, starve, kill, take land whenever they want, blackmail our politicians, Jeffrey Epstein, a lot of questions about who shot JFK and why we couldn't get those files. You're going to be blessed if you keep supporting this. And that is the reality, is that there was this incursion after the Schofield Bible. And this is what I really challenge people who believe this heresy. to look into the history of the Schofield Bible, look into who funded that Bible to teach Christians how to view the nation of Israel. The Bible is not referring to the modern state of Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. God is not calling upon you to support the slaughter of women and children perpetually, and is going to award you with heaven because kids are crying and starving and dying in the Middle East. I mean, you do have to have, if you don't have religious fervor or religious understanding, please just have a little bit of common sense, okay? God does not support the nonstop murder of innocent lives. That's just like Christianity 101.
Back to you. Have you heightened your security? I asked you that question because I heard that you've spoken about that. I'm just asking. I don't know. Interested in it. Have you?
Well, let's be frank. I have not heightened my security, to answer your question. And the reason for that is because I understand what kind of demons we're fighting. And I put my faith in the Lord. You know, my protection is prayer. And I try to live my life very honestly and let people know what's going on in the background. Obviously, I don't know if you saw this, but while I was on maternity leave, the FBI called me. There was a group chat with 40 Jews in New Jersey plotting my assassination.
I did not see that.
It really happened. Yeah. A man was arrested. And by the way, the irony of this is we are told, because he was upset that I'm speaking against the state of Israel, we are told that in Iran, we have to invade because they're religious fanatics, right? Well, look at what we're dealing with. People that believe that this state has the right, God has blessed them with the right to murder and kill people. And we also have their supporters now trying to kill Candace Owens. That's a fact. You can go look this up. The FBI, Candace Owens, the guy who's been arrested. By the way, he pled guilty. This wasn't like he got caught up in some plot. He pled guilty to trying to murder Candace Owens. I think that really does say it all. We are in quite a paradox here.
Hold that thought, Candace. Hold that thought. I got more to ask you, but not before I pay these bills. Back with more in a minute.
Still struggling with your weight even after doing everything right? You're not alone in what you're about to hear.
You think about the MAGA, we thought about the MAGA, right? And I watched the video of you from years ago and your definition of MAGA, and you were saying it's counter to what we're witnessing today. So on one side, you might see a conservative commentator like a Mark Levin. You might see a Ted Cruz. You might see folks like that. And you look at Donald Trump and some of the things the president is doing in this day and age, and you juxtapose that to a Steve Bannon, a Tucker Carlson, even Marjorie Taylor Greene. She spoke about this as well. You seem to be on that side. And just to make sure that I'm clear with what I'm talking about, this is a quote, there's a tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene on X. Tucker Carlson is one of my favorite people. He fiercely loves his wife, children, and our country. Since being fired by the neocon network Fox News, he has more popularity and viewers than ever before. He unapologetically believes the same things I do, that if we don't fight for our country and our own people, then we will no longer have a country for our children and our grandchildren. And foreign wars / intervention / regime change put America last, kill innocent people, are making us broke, and will ultimately lead to our destruction. That's not kooky. That's what millions of Americans voted for. It's what we believe is America first.
Facts. No more wars. Let them fight their own wars. This has nothing to do with us. That's my opinion.
How do you feel about what Marjorie Taylor Greene tweeted there on X? Do you completely agree with her? Is there anything that you disagree with?
Well, let's be clear. Right now, the people applauding Donald Trump are Meghan McCain, Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz ran against Donald Trump, and John McCain, with his dying breath, was an ever-Trumper, with his dying breath. And I remember Meghan McCain standing at his funeral saying, this country was always great. It never needed to be made great again, to take a stab at Trump, even as she was giving words for her father, which is remarkable, right? So if Trump is aligning himself with the people that didn't support him, and the people that did support him are saying what he's doing is wrong,
it's true.
That doesn't mean that MAGA betrayed Trump. That means that Trump is betraying MAGA, okay? MAGA is a term, make America great again. And it was because the American people felt like our country was in a steep decline while we were being told that we had to build up every other country with programs. We had to spread democracy in the Middle East. That's been a remarkable failure. And at the same time, our veterans are coming home and they're being treated like crap. We talked about the farmers. We talked about the ranchers. That was the vision that Donald Trump painted that made me get behind him. And I took a lot of bullets for that. A lot of bullets for that, especially as a Black person who's not allowed to vote Republican. And I don't regret voting for him in 2020 and voting for him and telling people to vote for him, because I truly believe he was the better candidate. And I still don't regret voting for him against Kamala Harris.
Holy shit. Could you imagine if Kamala Harris was president? We would have been in World War at this point.
Because I still believe he was the better candidate. But this is a betrayal, plain and simple. There's no other way to say that. And I believe what's motivating that is he took $100 million from Miriam Adelson. And these people, you're talking about Mark Levin, they are Israel first, okay? Meghan McCain, she is war machine first. How's that trust fund going to get topped up? What did John McCain do? These people are neocons because they support nonstop war, because that is how they enrich themselves. And if that is what Trump is aligning with, if that's what he wants his legacy to be, I came in fighting neocons and now I've aligned with him, then that's on him. That really is. I can't tell him what to think or what to say or who to support. I just won't support it.
That's fair. But does that surprise you? Because listen, in fairness to you, like I said, I only spoke to Trump once since he's been president. And that's when I did the whole town hall thing on News Nation with Chris Cuomo and Bill O'Reilly and those guys. Prior to that, I'd never spoken to Trump since 2014. But before he ran for president, people in the sports community knew Donald Trump very, very well. We used to go to his fights at the casinos and the hotels and stuff like that. We used to see him at basketball games, talk to him all the time. And the Donald Trump we knew was what folks, maybe not you specifically, I don't recall this, but most folks classified him as. Candace, he was a deal maker. You know what? Whatever it took to get what he wanted, he was cool with it. And so for me, this is not a surprise when you talk about him veering left veering right, actually, when it comes to some of the things that he's elected to do. But most people with MAGA seem surprised, and they do feel like they are uttering words like betrayal. To me, it's more the same. It's who he is. He's going to lean towards getting what he wants, and it's just that simple.
But he will never say this about a Democrat or if he interviews Kamala Harris. Stephen A. Smith will attack Trump all day long, but he won't bring that same energy to these Democrats that he interviewed. He just lets them do the Trump, and lie all day long. I wish he did the same thing that he's doing now, but to Democrats.
That's a fair assessment. I would say why we're surprised is because we had him in office for 4 years and he wasn't a warmonger. He wasn't aligned with the neocons. He was fighting them tooth and nail the first 4 years that he was in office. And it seemed to us that and I think anybody would agree, the country was getting better. I mean, I think that's why he increased his margins in voting. If you look at the demographics, more Black men, more Black women voted for him this second time around when he got into office. Because the rhetoric fell on deaf ears when people were like, oh, he's going to do this. He's going to bring us into war. Well, we go, he didn't do that for the first 4 years. So yeah, it has been a shift in how he behaved in the first 4 years of office. But to put two and two together, big money wasn't behind him the first time, right? That was the whole thing. Nobody wanted him. It was the Never Trump movement that was led by the McCain types. He can't get into office. And so did he buck to them suddenly when he took that check from Miriam Adelson and then change his motivations? Perhaps we're having to do some internal soul searching for those of us who have voted for him second and third time to wonder what is the sea change. But I think you have to admit that there has been one. He wasn't putting us into wars from 2020 to 2024.
Are you fearful at all that the Trump presidency, in terms of him being the 47th president of the United States, that it could end up being worse than anything you ever imagined if Kamala Harris had won the election? Is that possible?
No, I think Kamala Harris, it was going to be similar to Joe Biden. The advisors and people that were around her were going to be running the show. We can disagree on this, but I've never thought that she had the cognitive capabilities to be running the office. If you just look at her record and how she really got into office, and I'm speaking about her Californian record. But with Trump, do I have a fear of World War III? Yeah, that's why we're speaking up and saying this is unacceptable, right? That's why we are saying what you are doing is wrong and letting him know that we feel betrayed. We went along with it and said, this is fine. We just trust the process. Then I would probably be more fearful. But I think it's becoming clear that the base is fractured and hopefully he'll respond to that.
Candace, where do you go from here if he doesn't respond or he doesn't respond favorably to the kind of things that you are asserting and stating? Where do you go? Because we know how you feel about the Democratic Party, okay? And now we're hearing how you feel about this betrayal that you think that he has exercised since he's become president again. Where do you go from here if that doesn't change as it pertains to him?
Well, I think no matter what, I'm always going to support a candidate that I believe is telling the truth or that is going to do the most good for America. At the end of the day, my day is not motivated by politicians. I don't have faith in politicians, right? I have faith in Jesus Christ. And so this is not going to throw, I'm not going, oh my God, I'm going to become a Democrat tomorrow, or I'm no longer going to vote for Republicans anymore. I think that, and if anything, if he really truly continues to follow this and does what Bibi Netanyahu wants, then it's going to bring both sides closer together, because we're going to recognize that everything is about keeping us warring one another while the same people at the top are benefiting, the oligarchs, the war machine. And so I don't have plans to leave the Republican Party. Like I said, I don't regret voting for him. I regret what he's doing right now. And until I see who the candidates are, I won't be able, in the future, I won't be able to remark on where I'm going to go, because I'm always going to follow what I believe to be right.
Does any candidate stand out there in your mind? I mean, when I think about it, they've been talking about me as a presidential candidate. Candace, get that out their head. I'm not qualified. I don't know. I'm learning stuff from you and everybody else. I don't know any better. And damn it, I'm not interested. But I will tell you, I am interested in highlighting those who deserve to be highlighted from both sides of the aisle, to make sure we can do what we can to get this country steered in the right direction and see some figurative light at the end of the tunnel, per se. Is there anybody that's standing out in your mind that we should pay close attention to moving forward?
Thomas Massie of Kentucky. He has been the most consistent America First person. He has earned the ire of Trump and the ire of AIPAC because he does not accept their money, and he votes against every war, and he will not send a single dollar overseas. He votes against every measure to send money overseas until the American people are taken care of first. And so, yeah, he is the person that I peer pressure the most to run for president, and I would get behind him. And I feel that he would never betray the American people, because just you can look at his voting record and see where he stands on the issues.
Damn, Candace, only one? I asked you had some names, and you gave me one name. So I'm going like this. That's a bad state of affairs. As much as you know about politics, as much as you follow this stuff, if I ask you an open-ended question like that and you only give me one name,
I would say Massie and Matt Gaetz, but Matt Gaetz isn't a representative anymore. I really love Matt Gaetz.
Reason to be really, really nervous, Candace, because that means you don't believe in any of them.
Yeah, I mean, I when it comes to Israel, it's crazy to see how they vote. It's a nonsense. Ukraine as well, the way that they've just been sending our money to an effective laundromat. None of this is okay, and the American people should be upset that we've been promised, oh, we're going to stop this, we're not going to do this, and it's always the next emotional conditioning of why we have to send money overseas while the American people continue to suffer and our cities are in a state of decline. So no, I'm not impressed with politicians on the left or the right at the moment, at varying degrees. They betray us more than others, but there's no one that I find to be impressive right now. And maybe there's some people that I'm missing, and I'm sure I am, that are outside, that sit outside of DC. Right. But in terms of people that are in DC, Thomas Massie is the first name that comes to mind.
I think, listen, it's not to me, I don't have a problem with America First. I do have a problem with America Only, because I don't want to be a nationalist to the point that I forget the global perspective, because obviously we do business across the world. When I think about Israel, I'm saying to myself, that's supposed to be the lone democracy in the Middle East. You're looking at Ukraine. Okay, if you don't support them, then Russia gets more empowered. I get a bit concerned about that. Again, I don't know as much as people like yourself, but those are the kind of things from a distant perspective I look at and I say, okay, I don't want to just be pouring money all over the place, but in the same breath, if these other nations need our assistance and they're allies of ours, I'm not opposed to that necessarily. Do you believe in having a global impact, having our footprints around the world globally to make sure that, the world is a better place or a safer place to some degree? Do you believe in us playing that kind of role?
First and foremost, I do not support Ukraine. I do not support Zelensky. I think he's a modern day Bolshevik who's sending Christians to slaughter in an unwinnable war. He's just mass murdering Christians. And so if
Zelensky is pulling people off the streets. There's tons of videos on X you can watch where there's someone walking their dog or with their significant other, and they're beating them up with a group of dudes and throwing them in the van and shipping them to the front line. Zelensky isn't a good guy.
Neither is Putin. Putin is defending Christians at this single moment. And I don't pick Putin over Ukraine, but I know that Ukraine is more corrupt because we conducted a color revolution and we installed someone in Ukraine back in 2014. John McCain was behind that. And this is what we do all over the world. These fake protests, and then we overthrow a duly elected leader. And that's what we did in Ukraine. So Ukraine is a corrupt country and it's a laundromat of America. Israel is not a democracy by any stretch of the imagination. You cannot say it is a democracy and then listen to their absolute BS excuses as to why Gaza is treated in the way that it is and why Gaza doesn't have any voting rights. When we gave them voting rights, why are you giving them anything? If you're sitting here saying that at that moment you accepted that they could run what they wanted to in Gaza at that time, but you have the power to turn off the light, shut off the electricity, shut off the water. This is an apartheid state. This is what Gaza is. And I'm glad you're showing images. They have been treating these people basically just above the poverty line, not allowing too much food into Gaza for a very long time. And Norm Finkelstein was the person who woke me up to really how Gaza is run. It's apartheid state.
Yes, you are correct. I don't think Trump is on it. I do think people around him are on it. That's just my opinion. There's a lot of people that have come out saying Trump wasn't involved with Epstein at all. I mean, they've been on the same plane, but besides that, there's no connection with the kids. But I do agree with your statement.
Rights, and no one should support it and keep allowing people to call it a democracy. It's absolutely foolish. And again, that's because they keep us ignorant in America with ridiculous biblical arguments that are actually heretical, and it's not what the Bible is expressing at all. But all of that aside, going back to your question, yes, I am America first. I am not necessarily America only, but I am only going to be America first until we fix our issues. And that is, again, common sense, right? You have a household. If you got to feed your kids. If I said, hey, Steven, actually don't feed your kids, and I'm going to need you to feed the neighbor's kids. I'm going to need you to feed my kids, some people over that you don't even know out in Utah first, while your kids are starving, you would go, that makes no sense. That doesn't make any sense. Of course, I'm going to make sure my kids are fed first. This is America. Let's make sure that our people are taken care of first, that our people are able to live well, to have jobs, and to feed their families. Before we go around trying to fix the world's problems. I mean, we send dollars for ridiculous things to establish, trans rights in Pakistan. Like, what are we doing? That's a laundromat. That money is obviously not going there. It's being stolen from the American people.
But what about the issues that's going on right here in this country when we're talking about the immigration issue in Los Angeles and how you've got, the president sending 4,000 members of the National Guard, 700 Marines to the city of Los Angeles? Obviously, it sparked a protest throughout this nation. No Kings protest because the left was going to be diametrically opposed to his position. It's not just stuff going on abroad. It's stuff going on right here.
But this is like I'd say like 80-20 issue. The people support the deportations. It's just a small minority of loud people and paid protesters and illegals that are doing these no king protests. They all look exactly the same, white liberals and illegals. That's my opinion, at least.
Streets of America. What do you say about that? Because like you said, fixing our own house obviously should be a priority in your eyes. I don't disagree with you there, but what do you have to say about that? What's been going on in LA?
Obviously, it is the job of the federal government when you have an incursion, as we did during Biden's administration, of millions of people coming across the border, to get those people out of the country. Who does that hurt? It hurts us, obviously, when all of these people are unaccounted for in our country and playing a part in the economy while they're not paying taxes. That's ridiculous. You got to go home. There was a legal way to get into this country. I know, because I married an immigrant, and it took us 7 years. Okay, 7 years for my husband to go through the process to become a legal American. So I am especially insulted when these people pretend that there's just no way to do this. It's a long process. It's a hard process, but you can do that. And you're not going to tell me that all of these people need to stay in a country that they've been in for less than 4 years, especially the newcomers under Biden's very open border policy. Americans suffer when people are in this country unaccounted for. Sorry, adios amigos, you got to go home. I don't care at all. You got to follow the rules. I'm not going to feel bad for you because you broke the law and got away with it while there was and yet everyone in the entire Tennessee, whether you're in Texas, Tennessee, we all have to pay for it. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely, we are going to all have to pay for it. Why should I have to go to work to pay for people that broke into this country? So I don't understand it. But going back to your question, of course, this should be addressed first, right? These are uprisings that are taking place in America. These are issues and debates that need to be had and won in America. And that is another reason why we should not be having discussions about what Israel is doing. Like, they're always doing the same thing. They're bombing innocent people and claiming that they have a right to do it.
Please don't tell me your feelings about what you just described going on in LA in terms of the immigration issue. You don't feel that way about the children, do you? Children, I mean,
it doesn't matter if it's to say that the argument is that a child is allowed to break the law. Let me tell you why that's really wrong. They say this is like the separation argument. You're going to separate them from their parents. No, first off, everyone should go home together. You should take your child and you should go back to Mexico. The second thing that I want to say about how ridiculous that is we would never have the argument that if, let's use an example of a black man commits a crime in America, you know, let's say he shot someone and now he's got to go to prison. We wouldn't say, please tell me that you've considered, Judge, that, yeah, he shot someone. Yeah, he broke the law, but he has a child. So please don't imprison him. Please allow him to be released back onto the streets. No. You break the law, whether you're black, white, Hispanic, coming from another country, there has to be a consequence for that. And we understand that.
Just brought that up the other day.
On a molecular level. Of course, you're going to be separated from your child and go to prison if you break the law. It's the exact same thing here. Your children and you should not be separated, should all have to go home. When your parent breaks the law, unfortunately, the children have to suffer the consequences of that. Sometimes daddy has to go to jail. Sometimes daddy has to go back to Mexico.
My little brother means everything to me. I'm his rock, his role model, and his protector. That's why when I got...
You're very, very popular. You don't need my help in being even more popular, but you're going to get it anyway, because anybody that I bring on from now on that has an opposition to anything you said, I'm going to play your clips, Candace. I'm going to play your clips for them to see. I'm going to say, hey, did you see what she said? What's your response? I'm just letting you know in advance. I'm going to be like, look, did you hear what she said? Just so you know, because I want you to know there's folks out there that think like this, they feel this way, and they're making very valid points. I just want y'all to know that. But listen, before I let you get on out of here, and I really appreciate your time, I know I got to let you go. I had to get back to Tucker Carlson because of the War Room podcast. He had told host Steve Bannon this about his former employer, Fox News. Check this out, Candace.
That's not popular acclaim. That's not like their viewer surveys. Like, we need a lot more Mark Levin. Less Jesse Waters, more Mark Levin. Mark Levin! What they're doing is what they always do, which is just turning up the propaganda hose to full blast and just trying to, knock elderly Fox viewers off their feet and make them submit. This is where
Here's my problem with Tucker Carlson on this one, Candace. I heard
he's talking about
Fox News. None of it. Now I'm here.
That is a terrible comparison. Tucker, if you've ever watched him on numerous occasions, has said he has evolved. He was one of the biggest defenders of the Iraq War, and now he isn't. He's evolved. That's the simplest answer right there. But of course, Stephen A. Simp, as I call him, always with his talking points.
Hearing this from him now, that's my only issue. What do you have to say about what
you weren't watching Tucker before he got fired. There's a reason he got fired. Wow. Tucker was standing up to the war machine. He was standing up to Ukraine. That is the literal reason why Fox News got rid of Tucker. He was anti-war. And he has, by the way, admitted, and we are all subject to changing our opinions. In the past, when he was on CNN, actually, I think he was very pro-Iraq war. And how wrong he was on the Iraq war, and he believed in the weapons of mass destruction, was that provided a turning point for him to be anti-war when he realizes that actually this is a machine. And so while he was at Fox News, he's covered a ton of things. But when it came down to a new war, Tucker was bringing in people online to talk about why we absolutely should not be going to war with Ukraine. And it became problematic for the execs because just like what he's saying, they appealed to a market of people who believe that there's a threat around the corner. Elderly people who need to believe that nukes are going to be dropped on them because they grew up in a generation where there was a nuclear threat with Cuba. And Tucker Carlson was not serving them, so he had to go.
Last question to you, and again, thank you for your time. I know you got to go.
Because he dug into January 6th.
I was watching a video of you. I don't know whether it was from weeks ago or so. I'm trying to remember the date, but you was talking about, watching what you say because you're going to be banned, but you don't care. This is how it is. You absolutely don't mind, etc., because you're going to keep on going. What are your expectations for you? What are your expectations for those who are as outspoken as you on these very, very sensitive issues moving forward, considering the landscape that we're living in, YouTube shows, podcasting, etc.?
All right, guys, we are going to, one second. We are going to go over to X real quick. Let me switch real quick. And I have a very good video, especially on this topic. Still, we're going to continue, but it's with Matt Gaetz. He is another representative that I love. I think he tells truth. I think he's not a part of the swamp. And I think that we really need him right now. He would have been a good AG instead of who's the one right now that's in charge? I cannot stand her.
Israel didn't kick their regime change habit with Iraq or Libya or Syria, it seems. They need another fix. But Matt, this isn't a regime change war. It's about Iran's nuclear program. I wish that were true, but it's not. Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene opined that maybe Netanyahu is so feisty about regime change in Iran because he was facing regime change in Israel.
It's not being reported enough that on Thursday, they held a vote in the Knesset, and it was only by 2 votes that Netanyahu won. If he had lost, they would have had another election in Israel, and the polling shows that he would lose if an election were to occur today. That vote happened last Thursday. And then Friday, Israel attacked Iran. That's why the bombs are falling. And it seems very political.
Wow. I had no clue about that. But I mean, if Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying this, then it's probably true. Interesting. Very interesting.
This isn't about Iran's nuclear program. We aren't taking these steps to force denuclearization where the threat is higher and the leaders are even crazier. Take North Korea. North Korea's nuclear program is a far greater threat to the United States than Iran's. It is not even close. I know, I've had the briefings. I was on the House Armed Services Committee for 8 years. Iran has neither the bomb, the delivery system, nor the re-entry vehicle that you would need for any intercontinental ballistic missile to launch and re-enter orbit. North Korea has all 3. North Korea could launch a nuclear weapon at mainland United States today. And we've probably got the ability to knock it out of the sky, but Iran can't even get their bird in the air. Iran's death to America chant isn't really my bag, obviously, but Kim in the Hermit Kingdom points to U.S. cities like Los Angeles and San Diego and Seattle on maps, and he openly discusses wiping off major U.S. population centers from existence. Of course, we aren't looking to drop 100 bunker busters in the mountains of North Korea. President Trump took other brilliant diplomatic steps to constrain North Korea's hostilities. And the same could be done with Iran. But Matt, Iran has kicked out IAEA inspectors. There could be portions of their nuclear program that are secret. A nuclear secret in the Middle East. How about it? If the world is interested in a secret nuclear program in the Middle East, there is a country that won't allow any international inspectors. Israel. Israel has a nuclear weapon. Did you know that? I do. They allow no inspections. They are fully secretive and clandestine about it. And the Americans are fully aware. You know what? I don't even blame Israel for this. If they want to develop a nuclear weapon, if they had the blessing to do so secretly, I'm not in judgment of that. But to drag the world into a regime change war over secret nuclear weapons, when you have secret nuclear weapons, is a bit hypocritical. President Trump is the kind of guy who never gives up on a deal. Throughout his life, he's probably made deals and made lots of money on them, even when others walked away or didn't see value in a transaction. So here's a deal. How about Iran and Israel both give up their secret nuclear weapon programs? If Trump got that deal,
I agree.
He wouldn't only get the Nobel Peace Prize, they'd probably name it the Trump Peace Prize forevermore. And it's not that crazy to think about Israel denuclearizing. Look at the model in South Africa. South Africa denuclearized right before they stopped being an apartheid state. Prominent voices in Israel and America have called for Trump to recognize Israel's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, which some people call the West Bank. If that happens, Israel will have to let the 5 to 6 million people who live there vote. And they don't want to do that. I'm not calling Israel an apartheid state. Right now, I don't think they are. But if they are ruling the West Bank, as the neocons would suggest, then the South Africa model for denuclearization is not totally off base. There's a certain bravado at the beginning of a Middle East regime change war. There's enthusiasm, bold predictions of swift victory, and usually a total misunderstanding of what happens next. And the leading voice championing regime change wars for decades has been Fox News.
We must do the right thing. Saddam is evil and a threat to the world. He must go. We should have just taken 1441 and rammed it down Saddam's throat. It is dangerous to allow an evil dictator to remain in power. Now, if you want a chance that Saddam would never use those deadly weapons, that is your right in a free society, and I respect that right. But I don't want a chance that. Saddam Hussein is the largest army in the Middle East, all right? He has developed these weapons for no purpose. He doesn't need them defensively, all right? He doesn't need them at all. He's used them, as you know, all right? And he's invaded 2 other countries. But this isn't enough for you to have him removed. I think you're dead wrong. I don't think that there's any reason on this earth that that man should remain in power. In the end, Saddam will be removed from power, and the world will be a better place.
Tragically, we will lose American lives, but it will be brief. We're going to find out massive evidence of weapons of mass destruction.
I am confident that all those things that you predict are going to come true, and a lot of people that have been laying out the case against us are going to be very embarrassed.
Iraqi regime did not and has not disarmed. Saddam Hussein is deemed by the White House a threat to American national security, a brutal, murderous dictator, and a menace to the world. It is the hope of the administration and the goal of the war planners that disarmament and regime change be accomplished as swiftly as practical. Some number of our sons and daughters, our brothers and sisters will give their lives for the cause of freedom.
Things that we haven't seen in the past, very accurate weapons, very lethal. The Moab is a daisy cutter on steroids, and Iraq is not prepared for what's going to be thrown at them.
Oh, Iraq wasn't prepared. Daisy cutter? This is how easily the so-called foreign policy experts believed we would carve our way through Iraq. I saw how many of our bravest patriots were pushing up daisies as a consequence of that war. I went to their funerals. I visited their grave sites. I saw the true cost of a flawed regime change war in the Middle East. The problem is we had no plan to get out. Iraq cost America $3 trillion, and this distraction and disaster aided in both the rise of China and ISIS. Whoever was telling you that we had the ability to topple a regime in Iraq and then come out with something better was either 1, lying to you, or 2, so wholly ignorant about the country they were invading that their lack of knowledge or curiosity or understanding led to blood and terrorism and chaos. So as we approach the 2025 vintage of regime change wars in Iran, I wonder if those now cheerleading attacks on Iran know anything about the country they want to topple.
How many people live in Iran, by the way?
I don't know the population.
At all?
No, I don't know the population.
You don't know the population of the country you seek to topple?
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay,
it's not even... You don't know anything about Iran. So
okay, I am not the Tucker Carlson expert on Iran.
You're a senator who's calling for the overthrow of the government.
You're the one who
don't know anything about the country.
It's easy to sit in a senator's office or a perch in the Pentagon and send out tweets, press releases, and blustered statements about war. Nobody is shooting missiles at you in a Fox News studio. People barely even shoot divergent opinions at you in that myopathy. That's the comfortable political move in the short term, to support regime change wars. But that comfort is not shared by those who have to go fight in these wars and die in them, and many will.
Also, I'm going to show you guys a video of Netanyahu saying that they were going to war, or that they have these weapons forever. And he's been saying it since 1995,
produce
I
a
believe.
nuclear weapon in a if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months.
They have the wherewithal, the stored up, preserved knowledge to make a bomb very quickly if they wanted to do it.
Iran is so dangerous. Weeks away from having the fissile material for an entire arsenal of nuclear bombs.
They're very close. They're 6 months away from being about 90% of having the enriched uranium for an atom bomb. Iran is gearing up to produce 25 bombs, atomic bombs a year, 250 bombs in a decade. Ladies and gentlemen, time is running out.
Iran will be capable of producing alone, without importing anything, nuclear bombs within 3 to 5 years.
If not stopped.
That's not a good look. And we need to not be funding this war whatsoever or helping. But they've been putting out the funniest AI videos recently. They did a Trump one yesterday about Florida laws and allowing us to run over criminals or people who want to hold up the highway. This is an AI version of the liberals. It is so funny.
Sir,
check this out, guys.
Can I ask why you're out here protesting today?
Because someone's got to lie to the Hispanics to make them think the Republicans are the bad guys.
Why are you out here today?
As a liberal, we have to make the world think we're caring people.
What made you decide to come out here today?
I gave up my job to protest full time, so poor people don't have to.
Sounds about right. I mean, all these liberals that protest 24/7 with these illegals, do they have jobs? It seems not so much to me.
What's the main goal of today's protest?
We're here for unity. So if you don't agree, get the fuck out. What exactly are you protesting today?
I don't know the issue, but I stand in solidarity with whatever's trending right now.
Sounds about right.
What's your goal being out here today?
These people don't vote unless you scare them. That's why we show up.
I major in social justice, so I know what's best for communities I've never lived in.
Why are you out here protesting today? Because people of color need strong white allies like me to fight their battles for them.
Because someone's got to rile up this community into thinking the right's the bad guys.
Wow. I wanted to end on a funny note. I hope you guys had a great night. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Stay blessed. Peace.